Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Visit them on the web at recursivesquirrel.com. Episode 611, Dirty Marketing Roleplay. Monday, November 2nd, 2020. It's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Norton. Thanks for joining us. The internet has always had a problem with credibility, but in the age of Trump and now pandemic, consumers have grown more skeptical than ever of anything that challenges expectations. So how can brands build trust online now? Tonight we'll discuss. Also, this year's big Super Bowl question: what Macy's newest parade balloon means for you, blockchain for press releases, plus this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the Chief Marketing Officer at AutoZen. Mr. Saul Colt is here. Hi, Saul.
Bob, it's a pleasure to be here as the show's official Charles Nelson Riley. You call me last minute, I'm here.
Yes. Saul is filling in at the last minute for someone who couldn't make it, so we're really pleased to have him on the show once again. Now, also joining us, the man behind consultancy Future Fourth, author, speaker, Mr. Dave Delaney. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back.
Always my pleasure to have you on the show. And finally, he's the co-host of Across the Pond Marketing Transformed podcast, as well as managing partner marketing solutions lead at CI Squared. We welcome back Sam Monnie. Sam, what's going on?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back. So happy to be here. Really raring to get going. And I'm sure we're going to have a mild, quiet, and timid show with us tonight.
Yeah, you say that facetiously, knowing what the first topic is. Well, once upon a time, the internet was a great place to get attention for your brand, genuinely engage with loyal customers, and amplify influencer endorsements, as well as a whole lot of other things. Sure, there were always these dark corners of the web, but generally it was just a reminder to stay safe in unfamiliar neighborhoods. But in a post-Trump era of fake news and alternative facts and polarization, the internet's dark corners are now front and center, and consumers have never, ever been so jaded and skeptical of any online claims. So, Sam, has the marketing effectiveness of the internet been irreparably damaged by the last 4 years, and probably a little bit longer, but particularly in the last 4 years? And what do we do about it?
Wow, that's a small question to start the show. I would like to say I have a one-word answer, but my pages of notes will preclude me from that. The internet is broken is probably something a lot of people feel to be true right now. But in terms of turning it around and marketing effectiveness from a marketer's perspective, I think there is opportunity if you are one of those brands, organizations, forces for good who are trying to build trust, trying to be truthful, accountable, focusing on raising the bar and advocate for the privacy and keeping things private for your consumers and the way you handle data, and also protecting vulnerable groups. I think that I steal all those attributes of really like the trust barometer. Why are marketers and politicians so low in trust?
But does it matter anymore? Does it matter anymore? I mean, even if you do maintain better standards, there's such a skepticism out there online at this point about anybody trying to make a claim. And marketers have always been kind of at the low end of trust when it comes to the internet. Now we've got the added baggage of all this other stuff going on in the political world, kind of dragging us down. It just seems like any claims you make is going to be met with skepticism at this point, and there's no way to really build the kind of trust that we need as marketers to be successful.
Well, that's a very doom scrolling, doom posting lens to apply. And
That's
yes,
my job.
well, there is. So I'm going to be the force for optimism, the force for positivity, the force for the glass half full, not half empty. And I think if you do doom scroll on Twitter, or you will essentially think everything's terrible, the world's going to hell in a handcart, and that really, Ellen Powell published a request to have Trump banned from Twitter for breaking the terms and conditions of Twitter, and she wrote it, I think co-wrote it, and posted it earlier today when we were recording. And you read that and you think, well, look, you can't police the internet. What you can do is build a coalition of the right behaviors and the right mindsets. And if you look at because I just started doing research on the internet and what's been happening, and global internet shopping is up. Amazon delivered 37% sales in the last quarter was up. Innovation is happening and is thriving. You've had Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, influencers, they've all thrived. So brands can participate in the success and the growth. I mean, Nike digital sales grew, I think 82%. They said in the last quarter. Obviously, Google shed loads of 46 billion in sales. Facebook, despite the boycott, went up 20-odd%. So the internet as a thing is the place to be, and you can't avoid it. What you can do is think about how you participate. And I think you narrowly defined it as claims, Bob. And the internet is beyond what marketers say. It's also about what marketers do and how they operate. And if you want to be successful, then if you just think about the COVID world we just lived in, a lot of people have been laid off, but marketing budgets have been cut. And so you can't avoid the fact that distribution, sales, attention, advertising, a lot of industries have moved to this digital, online, app-based mobile space. And you've got to participate because it actually does connect us to the rest of the world. It does provide opportunity. And
I want to be clear. I want to be clear here. I'm not suggesting that the internet is going away or that it's not effective or that it's not driving a lot of sales. That would be ludicrous. We all see the numbers. We know what the digital realm is capable of delivering to us as marketers. I think my concern, and the concern of the article that was kind of referenced in this story, is that if we're gonna try to like launch a brand or make a new claim about a product, we have an uphill battle because suddenly there's no immediate trust because you're the brand that people trust. I mean, people don't trust brands any more than they trust people and other people in the online world. It's just like it doesn't. It's always been an uphill battle for a marketer to gain trust, but now it seems like in the digital space, there's even more of a hill to climb these days. And how do you overcome that? Right. I mean, it's like, do you need to be a big brand to have that kind of credibility already established before you can get there? Saul, you were going to say something.
I'm at this from a different approach. I think trust has been eroded to the point where trust doesn't matter anymore. Obviously people are going to take a recommendation from a friend or a relative higher than a brand. But, with the proliferation of misinformation, so much of the wrong information is being spread nowadays that, people don't even think about fact checking anymore. Fact checking has become kind of this cute, term that people use after a debate or something, with the, politically motivated. But, from a brand perspective, I believe that it is much easier to get claims through like the sniff test, because either people are just so bombarded with so much other media and things that are coming through, or like, maybe it's pandemic related, or it's the environment that we live in, or it's they're just beaten down by everything going on in their personal lives and professional lives. I don't think people actually care anymore about fact checking, and I don't think they care about claims anymore. And I don't believe brands are actually being held to a higher standard. I think we're kind of, at the point where I either need the product or don't need the product. And if I need it, I'm going to buy it. Nobody, it's so funny there in Toronto where I live, there's the two main internet providers and all their ads are exactly the same, except one is the fastest and one is the most reliable. Well, they're both saying nonsense and they're both kind of, unprovable. But who really cares? You're just going to go with whoever's cheaper at that moment because their service is almost exactly the same. No one's actually debating whether toilet paper is the softest or if it's the most luxurious. I think we're just at the point where like we don't care about claims anymore. If you solve a problem for me, I will buy your product. If anything, because of the last 4 years and Trump and everything, people have become way more selfish, and I think that's come through. And marketing hasn't exactly adapted to that yet, because gosh, it'd be an awful world if we were just prying on people's selfishness and narcissism and things like that. It'd be even grosser than it is now. But that's kind of where we're trending for some brands, because, like, and again, my opinion, had 5 minutes to get ready for the show. I think people just don't care.
I think you touched on something, Saul, there as well about recommendations from friends, and really what it comes down to is a business must produce great products and great services. Otherwise, they're not going to be recommended. So back to your point, if I'm looking for a product, I'm going to ask my friends on Facebook. It's one of the few things I do on Facebook now that I find value in, is I'll ask, what kind of, I don't know, leaf blower should I buy? Which kind of leaf blower do you guys have? And then all my friends will chime in and let me know the different ones they have. And that's when I will usually conclude from that little. So it's really a matter of as far as representing a client, making sure that your clients are producing great products and great services as well.
Well, the premise from Bob, I refute and I reject and I repel, because we have to believe in a better future and in a better approach in raising the bar. And if the argument is, hey, internet's been irreparably damaged, I'm saying it's been damaged, but that means there's opportunity to fix it and to make things better. And I am going to be a force for good. And there is a coalition of people who are actually challenging the negativity. And you can't fight fire with fire all the time. You actually have to put out positivity. You have to put out great stories. You have to tap into the better emotions that we can believe in. So storytelling, using emotions in the positive way versus a destructive way. Mindfulness, the whole growth of that whole mindfulness and mental health and well-being industry is the antidote to all the negativity and stuff out there. So I'm going to focus on building the positive and optimizing and growing that. So brands which I was in an internal meeting, and we started the meeting with a 10-minute meditation. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, that would have been absolute hokum, and people have just said, we ain't got time for that. Let's get on with the business. But actually now that attribute of humanity is being forced into how we live and how we work. So brands that can be forging those partnerships, can be finding those opportunities, potentially representing and looking for underrepresented groups and lifting their voices. There's so much good you can do with the internet and with humans in order to fight the negativity, but it's not fighting fire with fire.
Here's my trouble with that. I think that's a really great sentiment, and I think in large part I agree with most of it. But this idea that brands should be fighting for the forces of good is where it goes off the rails, because then you get into skepticism again. And the thing I'm particularly upset about right now when I look online are the brands that are trying to play the fence on the political issues, and they're trying to say, it's our country together. We're all in this together. You got to stop sniping at each other, and we're going to lead the way on that. And I'm just like, no, this is not the same as being, politically divided. This is something much more serious, what's going on in this country. And if you're going to play that card, you need to have been doing it for the last 20 years. You need to have been involved with political statements and stances all along. You can't just jump right in and say, I'm going to be the leader on this middle of the road type thing, which is not appeasing either side in the process, and it's not gaining any more customers. It's just creating more skepticism. And I think that forces of good argument just doesn't fly with me.
Well, I'll come back with another one shortly.
Okay.
I have a question about this meditation before you started the meeting, and I want you to answer this honestly. Did you open one eye just to see if you were the only one doing it?
Well, it was remote, and also that's the thing. The irony is, if you study psychology and humanity, we are the skepticism, and we know that I'm a marketer. I study psychology, and if you read all the psychology books and behavioral science books, you can use them for the forces of evil, which has been done by a lot of especially the social media companies. They know the addictive qualities of their propositions, and they turn a blind eye to that. And a lot of triggers and marketing actions are more of the dark arts and the positive arts. But if you are a student of the game, then you could actually out those people. You could play a different game. And to Bob's point, the world 4, 6, 10, 12, 20 years ago, you could get away with playing both sides, but now you're going to be outed. So if you're a brand or a company, your political donations can be published. Or if you are standing for Black Lives Matter, but actually have zero diverse talent, zero people of color or black people in your leadership and have them at the lowest levels and actually pay them the lowest, that will be outed. So now you're going to actually have to walk the walk as well as talk the talk, and people are being held to those higher standards by the employees, by the communities, and by their consumers and purchasers. COVID is forcing us to go through a lot of turmoil in whether you're more affluent or you're struggling, and our values are changing, and ultimately the legislation and other things will catch up. But I truly believe people have changed, our values are changing, and we're going to be more together, more connected. The political realm does not represent all of society and all of what we do. It has a lot of loud voice, it has a lot of power, but we are not only our politics. We are also other aspects of influencing the world, influencing our communities, working together and partnering together. So I think what's great is more and more CEOs are actually speaking up and closing the gap in the US, particularly, for example, gun legislation. More of the CEOs are speaking up and taking action if the politicians aren't doing. So I do see brands and companies, because remember, there are people behind the brands, but now more and more leadership and leaders, and especially CMOs. I think CMOs have the world at their feet if they're connected to culture and they're connected to really understanding human behavior. They can actually take the step forward to drive brands and companies and business and products to be for the forces of good. So more CMOs taking better action, I think we could be in a better place.
Yeah, and I couldn't
smarter too. I mean, to what you're saying before as well. Like, there's an app I use called Goods Unite Us. And it's an iOS app. I don't know if they have it on Android, but it's a great app because I look up any business. So if I've got my local Home Depot, my local Lowe's, my local Ace Hardware, or Home Hardware for my Canadian friends, I can look up, or Rona, but I can look them up with that app, and it can tell me which political party that brand, that company supports. And I can then vote with my dollars, which I think is a great use of that information in that kind of app. But then also, I think consumers are getting more savvy. They're starting to learn. The important thing is that they understand how manipulation is taking place, how misinformation is taking place. I really am a fan of Tristan Harris's work with the Center for Humane Tech. And it would be great to see more brands supporting organizations like that are going out of their way to help educate the consumers, because that's who really has to understand, how to see through the BS, right? There's plenty of browser plugins that you can use now as well, depending on the browser you use. There's a lot of browser plugins that you can plug in to tell you when you're looking at fake news. And so it's that kind of stuff that really does help. But it's really a matter of informing consumers. And then, as marketers, it's up to us to help spread the word as well to our friends and family.
First of all, let me just say real quick, 1 second. First of all, I want to say to Saul, to Sam, absolutely, I agree with you 100%. What you said was brilliant. And the same, Dave. I mean, that was some really insightful thinking. Before Saul kind of brings his comment in, I just wanted to pose this one fact from the conversation so far. All of you, when you were talking about what to do online and the effectiveness of online and how it can still be effective, you all brought up influencers, or at least influencer circles, looking at what friends are recommending, looking at what people you trust online, reviewers, journalists, whatever. Is that the vector that we need to be taking more seriously in an online universe where everybody is just kind of a little bit more skeptical? Just going for that recommendation is more important than ever?
Well, I think getting information from a diverse set of sources is not new. So, for example, I'm British. I get my news from the BBC, CNN. I watch Fox. I watch Deutsche Welle, which is the German Rai Uno in Italy, France 24, Al Jazeera. So I purposefully expose myself to different places of telling the news, and then you get a mosaic of what the truth actually is. Now, I'm probably the exception, but one of the things I tell my students when I used to teach as an adjunct was, okay, search. When you're using Google, search using google.com and then go to google.co.uk, use google.nz or NZ for New Zealand, .au for Australia. So search, even just go to a different country and you'll get different results. So there is an aspect of diversifying who you get information and who you connect with, and also training and teaching that as actually building a better network. And I think with AI and other technologies, that's actually more possible to get a conglomerate of the world, because if the US had a news which was more global, they would have a perspective of how the rest of the world is viewing the US elections right now. And I spend all my time having to explain things to people when I leave the country, although I haven't left for quite a few months because of COVID. But there is the diversity of your network is more in the digital world is absolutely multiplied and can be much more dynamic. So as I was saying, how do you treat people in a way that allows them to build a mosaic and be more connected, and using the technology? And the technology leaders definitely can be part of that solution. Us humans can be part of that solution. Our friends, our family, our neighbors, just be more mindful of being a bit more diverse. I think that's possible, and it takes, it takes a village. So it needs all of us to be open and pushing in that direction, I think, to make it happen.
Well, this has been a fabulous conversation on so many levels. I mean, I could go forever about this, but I will just leave it at saying November 2nd, November 3rd is the date that we're going to have the election here in the U.S. If you can vote, you should vote, and you should do so right away if you haven't already. So get to the polls on November 3rd. And also, I wanted to wish Whitney Loker a happy birthday, because she's asking for this birthday is that, Donald Trump be voted out of office. So if you can give her that would be fantastic as a gift. Sorry, I took a side, but I got to. Anyway. So anyway, should you or shouldn't you? This is the question facing many brands as the Super Bowl ad season gets underway. The game has long been the crown jewel of ad buys, but in the time of COVID, that enthusiasm is muted by far too many unknowns going on right now. Anything from, is the game going to happen? Is the game going to be exciting? Will there be fans there? Will fans be watching? A lot of unknowns. So Saul, is the Super Bowl worth the money and effort this year, or should most brands take a pass? What's your 10,000-foot view? And then let's drill down.
All right, so placing a marketing bet on the big game. I'm not sure if you have the rights to say Super Bowl, Bob. Placing
I have the rights.
Bet on the Super Bowl.
I have the rights. I'm a news organization. I'm allowed to say it.
All right. Placing a marketing bet on the Super Bowl has been a bad bet for the last few years, and this year is in my opinion, it's even worse. And that's for a few reasons. Ratings are down on all sports because COVID sports are not the same. Man, I'm a huge NBA fan. I was rooting for the Lakers to win the minute my Raptors got ejected, but man, it was a broken experience. And to see the championship with no fans was very bizarre. And people sort of smell the difference. The World Series ratings were down, NBA Finals ratings were down, and there's no reason to think football won't be down. Smart brands make Super Bowl ads and don't actually pay for Super Bowl ad time. All you have to do is release it a week before and say, this is our Super Bowl ad. And people have been doing that for a few years now. So that's another thing why I think it's a bad bet. But the biggest thing that I think is going to really hurt the Super Bowl this year is the Super Bowl is a group activity. It brings fans and non-fans together over a plate of greasy nachos and some bad, light beer. With no parties, it'll just be hardcore fans. It isn't going to be the spectacle it usually is. So you're much better off just sticking to your targeted activities and not put your whole year marketing budget into 30 seconds. And beyond the fact that all those things, it is never a good idea unless the money doesn't actually mean anything for your brand, because it's just it's not even a thing anymore. It's sort of gone. The last few years have not been. It's not the crown jewel that you described it as. It's just kind of like a thing that people do when they don't really know what else to do with their budget. But that is my opinion.
I'm not so sure I completely agree with everything. I mean, it's just like most of what you said.
You would be wrong.
Most of what you say is legitimate, but the fact is the game still holds a certain amount of cachet. There's still a certain value to it. The fact that the audience is paying so much attention. I mean, that alone, Dave, should be well worth the money if the audience is paying attention. The trouble is this year, we don't know if the audience is paying attention. And I think that Saul's comments about the NBA are correct. I mean, these sporting leagues are trying their best, but it's a broken experience. And if you have a broken experience, is it still, worth the money to pump into a Super Bowl ad?
Well, I think so in 2019, it was 5 million. This is what I read anyway. It was 5 million for a 30-second spot. And then I did some reading into it. I found that 11 million, or it's predicted to have 11 million more viewers this year than last year. Now, who knows based on what we're talking about, but COVID and such, but that's 193 plus million adults. And so 19% indicated from another survey that I read that Super Bowl ads make them aware of brands. So that's 36 million people that could become customers or more. So I don't know. I mean, as Saul's point, if you have a 5 million extra to throw away into this and invest into it, yeah, maybe it is worth it. I don't know. I mean, personally, I only watch a Super Bowl for the ads. I don't speak football at all. So, it's all kind of foreign to me.
So if you're not a Super Bowl fan, why don't you just look at the ads on YouTube?
That's that's a good point. And that is actually what I do now. And to your point, I mean, with groups coming together, that's traditionally I would see them during the Super Bowl with friends when I was watching the Super Bowl ads and they were watching the game. And now that people aren't coming together, and it could be, I'm curious to see what happens with that too, because people are still coming together, which makes me cringe every second I see it.
So I'll start by quoting the Burger King CMO. I think he's Restaurant Brands International CMO. No one wants to watch your ads unless you are at the Super Bowl. And that was his pitch at the EFF conference a few weeks ago. And he urges marketers to hit a nerve to cut through the clutter of advertising. And his big plea was about knowing the brand, being creative, and eliciting emotions. And so it was an interesting plea and argument, and I think it's ironic having two Canadians and a Brit talking about the Super Bowl, but anyway, we shall carry on pontificating. And for me, as I think about it, yes, with COVID, the world has changed, but we are adapting, we are adjusting, and we are persevering as a group of people. So for me, I think as any brand, it is very expensive, and the price has only gone down like 1 or 2%. So it's still costing over 5 million. There's data to say more people are watching. And the argument could be actually people who are present are paying more attention. Yes, they're not at the Super Bowl party, and they're not being distracted and eating nachos and drinking various brands of beer, which I shall not name. But there is a sense that maybe we are ready to be actually creatively wowed, to be engaged. And so brands who are brave, who get the tone right, who really understand culture and representation could actually cut through disproportionately and really change the world, have that huge disruptive impact, because this is going to be a Super Bowl like no other. It's a time for us all like no other. So you actually might get more people paying attention. And I come back to the ability to tell the stories that matter becomes so much more important. And so if you are a leader of a brand, I would encourage you to go for the most creative, the most dynamic, and not go for the usual suspects. Actually try something, take more risk, because there's now no better time than ever, I think, to go for that ultimate level of creativity and we all need this optimism. And I'm going to carry on with this rant because I've been going, we all need to be uplifted. We need the optimism, and the brand that could be the catalyst for that and strike that right nerve could actually cut through. So I'm actually looking forward to this year's Super Bowl and this year's ad, not with the cynicism of a marketer, but actually someone who's looking from that reprieve of the grind of the day-to-day of what's going on in so many people's lives, and actually as an opportunity for optimism. But you've got to be ready. There's COVID, so the game could be cancelled, could be postponed, it could be pushed back. There's no fans there, but we can't just stop and do nothing. So I'm again, arguing in favor of the better angels actually raising the bar versus just crappy, sucky ads that no one cares about.
So here's my argument to that. First of all, Sam, you and Dave are far better people than I. You guys are making decisions on where you spend your money based on political leanings and meditating. And like, I'm not making fun of you. I wish I saw the world the way you guys see it. I'm just a mean old jaded person who had 5 minutes to prepare for the show.
Not that you haven't brought it up 3 times.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure people know.
Don't you have a 28-minute meditation to do?
Yeah, but here's my thing. Okay, let's play role play for a second. So both of you put on something sexy and play along. Okay, I'm hiring for a CMO role of a major brand, and I say to this person sitting across the table from me, you have $10 million for your yearly budget. Tell me how you're going to spend the money. And which one would you think would be a better person to hire? The person who maps out a 12-month program that's constant re-engagement and all sorts of things, or someone who says we're going to buy a $5 million Super Bowl ad, spend $1 million or $1.5 million to produce it, and wrap around a digital marketing element to it that'll last about 30 days, and then we're just going to coast for the next 11 months. Who do you hire?
So Saul, that's a bit of a myopic view, because yes, if the choice is you're going to get a job, you got $10 million to spend, wow me, that's a different answer to the question of should you participate in the Super Bowl, and I'm arguing all the reasons why you should as part of an overall plan, but that's not the be all and end all. But for some brands it is a tactical play which actually plays off strategically, because they're shifting their awareness from 2% to 8% is the difference between getting that investment and actually tipping the scale in terms of consumer base. So if you look at the case studies of the Super Bowl, you'll actually find there are winners and there are losers. And so there is a brave CMO with the right brand would actually say, yeah, actually I am betting on the Super Bowl because I'm doing some sort of linkage to the halftime entertainment. I think I remember the classic example of Beyonce when she stole the Super Bowl from Coldplay. She got some social engagement, dropped her album, and then was launching her concert tour at the time, and within like 3 minutes sold over millions of dollars of tickets. So she had a great strategy by hijacking the Super Bowl as that moment to influence culture, because once you get culture doing your dance, listening to your music, reciting your lyrics, seeing your worldview, tipping that culture or tapping into that actually can have a multiplier effect. So I just pulled it out of the hat. Beyonce stealing the Super Bowl from Coldplay is a classic example of marketing awesomely done a few years ago. So if you're a marketer listening and you got that $10 million and you've got to pick one pill or the other pill, I'm hoping there's one or two really smart creative marketers who actually can find a way to thread the needle and come back onto this show and say, hey, Saul, here's what happened when I actually did pick the Super Bowl approach.
Okay, I'm going to play jerk one last time before I succeed. I just Googled Super Bowl 2019 ad sponsors, and I got a result of Anheuser-Busch, PepsiCo, Gatorade, Mountain Dew, Turkish Airlines, and M&M's. I could not remember a single ad either of them put out. So, so you could say the Super Bowl is a really great short-term springboard or short-term blip, but it's not an ongoing strategy and it's not a consistent strategy. So I'll go back to my original statement that Super Bowl ads are a great idea for people who the money is there, and it's not, necessary for them to actually, worry about that amount of money possibly failing. Because I just, and I watch the show, And, the only real sponsor I can tell you from the Super Bowl is Pepsi, because they sponsor the halftime show and they make a big deal of that and things like that. But I couldn't tell you what the Gatorade ad was last year. I couldn't tell you what the Mountain Dew ad. Anheuser-Busch, if I had to guess, it probably had some horses in it of some kind. And actually, I do remember the M&M's ad because Danny DeVito is in it, and he's amazing.
See, you're talking yourself around again. You
ad.
see, unaided recall because coming back, the market researchers and the M&M's people are applauding.
Let me.
Because you talked yourself back into it. I think so. Dave,
Let me.
Every time you step into a store, Saul, you see the M&Ms, think Danny DeVito, and you're like,
This conversation has been really interesting, but it's been mainly about the value of the Super Bowl overall, and not particularly focused on this COVID or a Super Bowl and what it's going to mean. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that, but are there any potential pitfalls if you do decide to pursue a Super Bowl strategy this year? Are there any pitfalls that you would kind of warn a brand to worry about and be cautious about taking? I mean, any thoughts on that?
You've got to be smart about the imagery you're using, of people hugging or high-fiving or touching each other in any way. So, I mean, it's smart to be able to think about, where we are right now. But a really smart agency or brand will come up with something that integrates with, the video platform of the day, and will integrate with the internet, basically, right? So something, a transmedia story, I think, would be amazing. Like something with an ad with an Easter egg hidden in it that takes the viewers on a little bit of a trip where they actually have where they actually have some fun. Maybe, I don't know. I like them, throwing out ideas that way, but something like that where they do something to interact with people, I think is the key thing, to let them have some fun knowing that they're behind a screen on a computer.
Here's your $5 million idea, and even Samuel's going to like this. Because there's only going to be like a third of, assuming there's only going to be a third of the people in the stands, or less than a third of the people in the stands, a brand like Doritos, a brand like Pepsi, they should buy all the seats right around the crowd microphones and just have a guy eating Doritos the whole time through the whole telecast. All you hear is like the crunching of the chips. And then he just keeps going, man, these Doritos are good. And they'll pay for it. Instead of buying a commercial, they just pay for a couple guys to eat the whole time, because there's going to be nowhere for the cameras to go except for these couple people in the audience. So that's what I would do.
There you go, Saul. There's marketing works, but in a building on your response, Bob, I see this because as you think about where the world's going to be in February when we're doing this, there's a lot of unknowns. So you're going to need a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. So you're going to have to be agile and be able to pivot and be a bit more responsive. I also think there's a huge opportunity to have some sort of sense of true cultural understanding and some sort of corporate social responsibility. So what message is going to resonate with people so deeply and so meaningfully? Now, you can often get away with slapstick and humor and lightheartedness, but I think at the time we're looking for, again, I'm going to come back to this whole optimism thing and how that might be relevant. I know that NFL and that sport itself is quite violent, and so you've got to think about that in the right way. But there's that classic Monster ad that came out a few years ago, which was all about, talk to people about what they want their life to be and how your career was gonna inform that, and ultimately it's a job. A job site, which is ultimately what they're selling. But what is the story? What's the message that's going to resonate so deeply with us that's actually going to change our behavior and change the world? If that's the creative palette that you've got, I think there's huge opportunity, but there are huge risks. And so where are the creative saviors? Where are the creative angels? Where are the creative catalysts out there? Right. And I think this is the brief. This is a brief I'd love to work on it. This is a brief that if you're a real marketer, you'd love to work on. This is the gnarliest issue at the gnarliest time. Bring me on. That's the sort of thing I would absolutely sign myself up for versus shying away.
I'm throwing out another $5 million idea, and when somebody steals this, remember you heard it here first on the BeanCast. You want a brand to really take advantage of the moment and be optimistic and change the world. Some brand should go out and say, hey, I know you've been home for like, I don't know, at this point, it'd probably be 11 months, and you're watching the game and your team may lose. Please remember, we're all frustrated and tired of being home. Don't make this the most domestic abused night of the year, like it always is. And have a brand remind people not to get too invested in the game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
But there you go. So that's exactly it. What if you're the brand that actually brings a partner or brings coalition, bring partners, and actually helps the world, helps us, helps the community be better? So this kind of more purposeful, it's been a buzzword for a while, but now is your opportunity to weave the corporate social, to build purpose into what you do as a brand, and not make it about selling more chips, but selling something that helps us be better. And that's for me, that's a great idea or catalyst for a space that brands can go onto, and being a brand that brings you that message or brings you that hope or brings you that solve will I truly believe will be disproportionately beneficial. So there you go, CMOs and agencies.
Did you know the Super Bowl for many years was the single worst day for domestic abuse?
Yeah, we did. I did know that, and that's why I thought the idea was actually pretty good. It's not a bad thing to remind people of at that time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to move.
Their team loses and they go crazy. Anyways, go on.
Well, I'm going to move on to the next topic. There's a new balloon coming to the rarefied pantheon of characters that have been honored with inclusion in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. That character? It's Red Titan. Don't know who that is? Well, that's because you're not 8 and you don't recognize the alter ego of Ryan Kaji, the host of Ryan's World on YouTube. He's an 8-year-old who basically opens up toys and shows them to kids and helps them to understand whether or not this is something that they'd like to play with. And what makes this whole thing such a big deal is that it's the first time a purely internet-created media property has been given this honor. Dave, what does all this say about the current and future power of independent media voices, and in YouTube in particular? What do you think about Ryan getting his own balloon? This is a pretty big deal, isn't it?
It's a huge deal. I mean, there are 16 balloons available for the Macy's Day Parade.
I know. I was reading that. I'm like,
yeah. It's pretty fascinating. I didn't know this. They're 200,000 per balloon, and they cost 500,000 in helium to fill, which is insane to me. But yeah, no, this is a pretty fascinating story. And, in an age when reality TV stars can become president, I guess anything is possible. I mean, I attempted to find, by the way, like the viewership numbers of some top kids shows, like on terrestrial television. So I looked up, I was trying to find like Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and, Sesame Street, but I didn't get too far with finding out, the numbers of viewers on this. But it's easy to look at the metrics on YouTube, of course. So I took a look at Ryan's channel. His channel has 27 million subscribers. His videos have garnered over 30 billion with a B views. And his Red Titan balloon announcement video has 741,000 views so far. So clearly they're considered kidfluencers, right? He's a kidfluencer and he has influence. So I also read that he earned 26 million in 2019, and that was 4 million more than 2018. And
he's the highest paid. He's the highest paid YouTube star out of all YouTube stars, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah, and his channel started in 2015, and he was making like tens of millions in most of the years leading up to the most recent numbers that I just quoted. So I would say that independent media voices have a ton of power now. It's astounding. Like these numbers were just kind of blowing me away. So
I'm gonna play the jerk card here and say it's got nothing to do with independent media voices, and it's got everything to do with money. And I couldn't find anywhere in any of the articles mention why was this spot even available? How many other people applied for it? Was this actually a choice, or was this a hey, we've got an empty slot, we might as well fill it? Like there's a lot of things, and I know I'm the negative Nelly, and the two of you are sunshine and lollipops, but But like, it's a cool story, and the fact that this guy's making all that money is ridiculous, and good for them, and everything like that. But it kind of also, you wonder if Ren and Stimpy came up with the money, if they would have been okay with that too. They've got an event to throw. This is a weird year. They're not doing it the same scale they were doing it before. They found someone who was willing to commit for a 3-year contract. I even think the 3-year contract is pretty risky because the internet and popularity and anything can change. I have no idea if PewDiePie is still a big deal, but he was at one time the biggest deal in the world. And then I think it came out that he didn't like Jews or something. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but man, people turned on him in a heartbeat. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's a really interesting move, and you kind of wonder why they didn't buy a Super Bowl ad. And I say that half sarcastically, but they probably would have hit a ton more people at around the same price, because you talked about it being $700,000 just to make the actual balloon or whatever you call this thing.
Yeah.
They never told you what it cost to actually insert the balloon in the parade. So I wonder if it's around the same cost, maybe $1 million less for a tenth of the audience. So I don't know. There's a lot to the story that they're not telling you.
It's interesting too, because like the Super Bowl, it's kind of TBD exactly how that's going to go down this year. With the Macy's Day Parade, there's going to be no audience on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're doing the parade. I mean, obviously there'll be a television audience, hopefully. They had 22 million viewers in 2019, which was down from.
Let me just inject a little dose of reality in here. We say that there's not going to be any audience on the streets of New York, and I'm telling you, there's going to be an audience on the streets of New York. There's no way they're not going to congregate anyway. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
so.
There'll be people, but the route is even shorter. I think they're just doing 1 or 2 laps around the Macy's building instead of it being that prolonged route throughout the streets and stuff like that.
Really? Saul, I don't know. Sorry, Saul. You mentioned a 3-year commitment, and I might have missed that part on this. So I don't know if this is I think this is just a 1-year commitment, as far as I understand. But anyway, to your point, though, there is there. Yeah, I might have missed it.
Here it says, but now that the standard 3-year parade deal has been inked, our Pocket.watch execs worried, since the parade's route has been shrunk down to the blocks immediately around Herald Square flagship store, and each balloon will have what the store calls an innovative, specially rigged anchor vehicle framework. So the balloons are going to be dragged by a car instead of people, and they did sign a 3-year agreement.
So, okay, well, to your point, though, and I do find that interesting because there is an FTC Truth in Advertising actually but they issued a complaint, and there is a children's violation with the FTC law about deceptively promoting products, and directly into Ryan's channel. So it'll be interesting to see how that story plays out. But I mean, with the amount of money they're making, it seems like they could probably just pay for it and make it go away. But I did watch some of it.
I thought the R on Ryan's chest stood for referral.
Hey,
but if you take a step back, as I was listening to this, it just reminds me of that stunt that Tommy Hilfiger pulled years and years and years ago, where he ran an ad and he basically put, like, I think it was like Louis Vuitton and Ralph Lauren. So he put 3 big names and then put his name sort of blanked out in amongst those, and everyone was so offended. How dare you compare yourselves to these masters of fashion? And guess what? By that got everyone talking. So imagine being this balloon, which is amongst all of these other icons. It's a great positioning and depositioning act, because you're essentially establishing yourself in the same league as the Mickey, all of these 80, 90-year-old icons. And so from a pure marketing and branding move, this is genius. And the cost benefit of, is it $3 million for the perspective of people thinking, oh, you're just like Mickey Mouse. That is a huge branding play and a huge positioning play. So from a marketing 101 principles perspective, it sounds to me, the more I hear about it, it's genius. And history will tell us how it plays out. But from that, it's kind of a small cost, high potential reward. And there's going to be so many other brands out there kicking themselves, thinking,
Oh, and
how can
And
we
you
come up
know
with
the
this?
thing to remember though, I mean we do these comparisons and contrasts with the Super Bowl and other types of events, but this is the Super Bowl for family entertainment. I mean there is no other event that comes close to this in terms of viewership for family entertainment, and I think that's a key factor here.
Yeah, you nailed it on that one. And I'm just glad his mother started the YouTube channel in the first place in 2015. I was reading how she had decided to quit her job as a high school chemistry teacher and go full time with the YouTube channel. So, better that than sell meth.
And I think the lesson here for marketers.
Breaking Bad. It's a Breaking Bad.
The lesson here for marketers though is that don't take. I mean, we know about influencer marketing. We know that it's important part of the mix that we're putting forward into the marketing universe. But this number really shows you that maybe the influencers out there, maybe the YouTube stars are more important than a lot of the people that you're doing deals with. So, pay attention to that fact. Well, the last story, we're going to go through it real quick because we're running out of time. Verizon has announced that in order to combat disinformation online, they will now be distributing all their press releases through a blockchain ledger. Further, they're advocating for other businesses to follow suit. My question to you guys is this enough to win back consumer confidence in the online information they read or see? I mean, this kind of takes us full circle back to the first topic, so I don't know that there's much more we can say about it, but I thought I'd throw it out there. Anybody got anything to add to this?
How is this going to be any different than just going to the Verizon.com official site and looking at their press release page? Like, I think if there's any misinformation, it's because people aren't doing any fact checking, and the information is there if you do want to take that step. So actually adding another level of complexity when they say that they're fixing the problem, they're saying, don't go here, go there. And this is from us too. Like, I didn't really understand the problem they were solving. I get the idea of blockchain, but I also don't see somebody in middle America understanding what blockchain is. And maybe that's being unfair.
I see it again. If you're taking a macro, okay, what can they do to not be part of the problem? Well, let's see if we can get a movement to actually use this blockchain platform as a way of validating and verifying that there is integrity behind this release, this data, this information. So the whole premise of blockchain, and I think a lot of this has come from this whole raft of 5G conspiracy theories and how that spread so quickly. So someone at Verizon has said, well, look, this is a way that if we use blockchain, it is supposed to be bona fide, that this is legit. Can we try that? And if others jump onto it, and I think there were some other brands who've started to use the technology in this way, then again, it becomes a movement. Can you build a coalition of the good who are actually saying, well, look, we're going to abide by this standard, and if it then becomes established, maybe you can actually build some greater trust and integrity into the information out there. So it's a full circle moment, and for me, it's one other strategy or tactic really that fits into raising the bar, and whether it may work, it may not work. But that's for me, again, glass half full, positive optimism storytelling approach that I'm going for, and I'm sticking with that approach.
But how does this stop someone like me who only has 5 minutes to prepare for the biggest marketing podcast in the world and just basically skimming an article and coming out and talking about something as if I've invested a whole day researching? I will
point out he's exaggerating a little bit, but not much.
But I think the answer is over time. So you're thinking of now this snapshot of today, but in 1, 3, 5, 7, 12, 15 years, that would become a standard or the standard or a better standard. And I think it's just like in anything. If you imagine 5, 10 years ago, you would never have thought that Facebook and Instagram were the advertising channels of the world, but they are. So I think you've got to project forwards and say, what is this part of? And can you be part of this movement? It may not be this execution, but for me, that's what I see, that there's a new standard of verification and trust in the system, because there is a platform, there's a coalition who have using technology or the platform in a way that is reputable and validated. It's like the AP News, I guess, of press releases. That's what's in my head, and we'll see over time if it lasts or if it flames out.
Yeah, from my understanding of it, like if a news story is published and it's using full transparency, which is the name of this program, that I guess it will have some sort of border or some sort of graphic around it or something to show that it's verified or something to that effect. But I'm not convinced that regular consumers are going to fully understand that, because if they question it, even if you say, well, no, it's blockchain, then they're going to be like,
but clearly, I mean, unless I'm getting this wrong, this is not for consumers. This is not a consumer solve. This is more about solving it for journalists, right?
Well, I thought it was if they share it on social media, though, if they share something that is misinformation, like if they rip a press release, put it on a different website and edit the press release to, whatever they want, that how can you tell if that press release then starts spreading on social media, people will believe that press release. And so at least this is my understanding of it, but it did confuse me as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it's well thought out. And quite frankly, I think a blockchain vendor got to Verizon and convinced them to do this, which is probably closer to the truth. Well, it's time for this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do some shameless plugging, starting with Saul Colt. You can find him at autozen.com. You can also find him at theideaintegration.com. Yeah, theideaintegration.com. That's his website. But tell us what's going on in your world, Saul. What would you like to promote?
Just work, trying to make something really amazing. Please go to autozen.com, give me your email address, and I will send you emails in about a month and tell you what the concept actually is. But if you're not the type that wants to give an email address, go anyways and download our guided meditation to take away some of the stress of this horrible time we are living in. Other than that, feel free to reach out. I always like getting a tweet or two after every show telling me I'm beautiful and wonderful. And again, just thank you, Bob, for always having me back on the show. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really love having you on the program. And the guided meditation may help out Sam with his meetings in the future. So that's fantastic. You can all help each other out. Next up, Dave Delaney. You can find him at futurefourth.com. That's the home of his consultancy. Tell us what's going on in your world, Dave. What would you like to promote?
Well, Bob, I send a newsletter every Friday. It's a free email newsletter, and it's called The Nice Maker. And I will give away a free copy of my book, Improve with Improv, and how to use skills from improv to improve the way you communicate with all your stakeholders in your life and in your business. So if you drop by nicemaker.co, and you will get that free book, but you will also be subscribed to the newsletter. And every Friday I send nice stories that actually, and tools and tips just to make your life a little better. And, if you hate it, unsubscribe. It's cool.
That's fantastic. So definitely check that out. Dave's a font of great knowledge, so you want to definitely connect with him. Last but not least, Samuel Monnie. You can find him at cisquared.com. That's the home of the consultancy where he works. You can also go to marketingtransform.com to catch his podcast, where he is a co-host. So tell us what's going on in your world, Sam. What would you like to promote?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So teeing up firstly the podcast, marketingtransform.com. And we are on a little hiatus from season 4. Season 5 is coming soon, so look out for some new news on season 5 coming soon. We're looking forward to that. Pivoting a little bit, but it should be some great content. And also some new news that you just shared for me becoming managing partner and marketing solutions lead at CI Squared. You can find me at cisquared.net. And that's a company, an organization, which we basically believe that effective communication is a key to unleashing people's full potential and achieving business growth. I've been my mission has always been something that's been important to me, and I truly believe in putting people before the P&L, and we believe that communication is a key to making sure that people unleash their communication. My passion is helping unleash people's creativity and helping them discover their potential, and we see that human connection is key to unlocking that, and we teach how to prevent miscommunication and misunderstanding, and specifically we have this storytelling framework. that uses neuroscience and behavioral economics to train people how to listen effectively, be aware of their biases, and tell stories that inspire. So I'm really proud to be part of that organization and using storytelling to really help people succeed, whether you're in sales or you're marketing. There's a huge opportunity there to help connect, understand, and inspire people internally or externally, the consumers, the customers, and the brands that you work on.
Yeah, it looks fantastic from what I saw. And we should make a note again. I did get the website wrong. It's cisquared.net. So definitely check that out. As for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. And of course, you can find out how to advertise on this program. So check it all out at thebeancast.com. And now it's time for this week's Fair, Fail, Foul, a rundown of the best and worst of advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. First up, the Fair of the week. I am in love with these brands doing Animal Crossing type integrations. Another brand did one this past week, and this time it turned out really, really effective. It was really interesting. Ally Bank illustrated the value of letting them handle your investments by creating a special Animal Cross New Horizons island where you could explore wealth goals and get a great price on turnips in the stock market that they have in the game. I don't know, Saul, but this seems like, in one sense, it's just another simple stunt. You take over a video game, but in another one, it's completely aligned with the effort that the bank is trying to put forward. I mean, it's showing a lot of wealth goals in there. It's showing boats and houses and different types of things you can build in the game as being valuable resources that you can save for. And then to get a good value on your investment of your turnips in this stock market makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's got a good integration and it's targeted perfectly for the right audience, which is a largely late teen to early 20s audience for the most part, with an occasional 53-year-old man playing. So what do you think?
So I'm not really up on Animal Crossing. I don't know if this is going to get me banned from the show, but like when I hear of Special Islands, I think of David Copperfield, and more than that, I think of Second Life. But I went a little deeper and read about this, and I agree. This is a really interesting, integration and or whatever you want to call it. It's a really interesting use of the platform because they're adding value and they're not just there, but again, it does smell a little like Second Life, and hopefully it has a more long life and lasting appeal.
It's funny. I made a note that it reminded me of Second Life as well.
Yeah, but the thing about it is it doesn't matter whether Animal Crossing lasts or not. And, it's been around since 92 in one iteration or another, I think. I mean, they've just evolved the game over time with different versions of it. But that's not the point. The point is Ally Bank did a good job, and they basically took advantage of the key features of the game and made it meaningful to an audience they were trying to reach. I think that was really smart marketing overall. Mm-hmm. Well, the fail of the week is going to go to the agency GSD&M, and it comes from a haircutting chain, Sports Clips, is suing GSD&M over a hack that allowed a scammer to infiltrate the agency's billing system to get the client to pay $541,000 to a bank in Argentina. I mean, it's just crazy how this went down, and nobody caught it. The payment company didn't catch it. The GSD&M didn't secure their servers well enough to avoid this in the first place, and the client got royally screwed. This is definitely a fail, Dave. What do you think?
I think Sports Clips have to sell 90,167 haircuts to make the money back.
Well,
no, I think it's terrible. It's absolutely, it's horrific. It's horrific.
Well, listen, I read the story and I was hugely offended because there was a piece in here that the emailed voice confirmation was made by someone with a voice that had a British/South African/Australian accent. How dare you mix up a British South African? They sound nothing alike. So, I mean, it's like, really? Scotland, England, and Wales, there's no such thing as a British accent. So that alone should have raised some alarms because it's literally British/South African/Australian. I'm offended. That's all I can say.
The thing that was most surprising for me, and this goes to a little bit of what Dave said, who was not amazed that Sports Clips had $500,000 of liquid cash that left and nobody even noticed? Didn't even affect their business for as many days as it took for someone to notice. That's the most impressive part of this whole story.
So no, it's not. It's again a British / South African / Australian accent was what people said. Aha, that proves it wasn't one. It's like, really? That's like half the continent. That's like, at least 50, 60, 200 million people covered. Anyway, I shall rest.
If you throw a Russian accent in there too, it could have been Sean Connery.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, R.I.P. All right, the foul of the week goes to Facebook for their if you've been reading the news recently, Facebook is attempting to block post-election political ads. It's a well-meaning effort to try to keep the dialogue after the election and the tensions after the election kind of tamped down. But unfortunately, this process backfired and caused the Biden campaign to be completely blocked prior to the election. Some are estimating that they lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 worth of potential contributions to the campaign during this time frame, given previous data. And not only that, they couldn't compete with the Trump campaign at this time. This is really ugly looking for this company. I mean, Sam, Facebook had 4 years.
What are you talking about, Bob?
They had 4 years to get ready for this.
Their revenue, ad revenue rose 22%. They've got 10 million advertisers instead of 8 million since January. They are making more money doing everything they do. It's all strategic and purposeful and choiceful. They win. They win when they lose. They win when they lose and lose again. This is.
Oh, I'm not saying that they're losing money. I'm not even suggesting that it's bad for the company. I'm just suggesting that this is awful what they did.
Well, it may be bad, but guess what? They win. They make more money. So until Facebook gets broken up, they're going to keep on doing whatever they do, however they do, because guess what? They keep making more money.
The only thing missing from this story is Mr. Zuckerberg said he was very, very sorry and it won't happen again.
Well, have a suggestion for this list or just want to discuss it? Comment online. Use the hashtag #FairFailFoul. That's #FairFailFoul. And that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an Apple Podcasts listener, we've also provided a direct link to our listing there, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory on the Apple Podcasts app. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C. Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Just like, okay, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly